So I want to just chat today about the little fish that are in the water in the creek. Now what I want to chat about is how your identity gets so wrapped up in what's going on in your life, your job, your family, your possessions, your status, and you can feel like you're living a comfortable life until the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. I think one of the biggest things that people struggle with divorce, and especially with a toxic divorce, is everything that you've based your identity on gets stripped away. First, it starts out with having a family, being a father. If you have kids, I'll just assume we have kids for this discussion. And then you wake up one day, and the time that you took for granted, probably with your kids, you're now not getting to see them as much, if at all. And if you're dealing with a toxic, narcissistic person who then proceeds to launch a smear campaign against your character, well, then they start to take other things away. Your reputation. So then that starts getting affected. And then as you start rolling into the family court system, you realize that everything you've worked for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however long it may be, and you realize, holy crap, I'm going to lose the majority of all of that. And then, if you get to the point where you're like, okay, all right, I know I'm going to lose everything, but I'll be able to rebuild. And then you get the note, the little information that says, oh, by the way, you're going to pay X amount for X amount of years for child support. And depending on the state you live in, it might also be, hey, guess what? You also are going to pay alimony in the sum of X amount of dollars. The sad reality is most people are not well off. Most people aren't the Jeff Bezos or the Dr. Dre's of the world, where they have a lot of money, so when they lose a lot of money, they still have a lot of money. I think for the most part, people kind of live, well, you almost have to. You kind of live at that 80%, 80 to 100%, 120% mark of your pay. So you might be doing okay, and you might be putting a little bit of money away and paying bills and making things happen. But whenever you go through a divorce, you realize, holy crap, that little chunk of change that you had is now divvied up a lot more, not by choice, not by your choice, but because a family law system spits out a number and they determine that you will pay this. I'm getting to the point where I think I'm going to have to stop looking at some of the Facebook stuff, because every day there's a new person getting slammed with this reality, and they'll post, oh my God, I got, I'm paying this, and it's, 60% of my pay or X amount of my take home. How am I supposed to survive on this? And that's the reoccurring question. And I think part of the problem with this, we kind of discussed this the other day in that live stream I did with Alex Falcone and Mark. Everyone typically rolls into the family court system thinking they got it figured out, thinking it's going to be fair, thinking, okay, I'm dealing with an unreasonable ex, this will shut it down, things will calm down, I'll be able to get my life back in short order. Now, I just want to pause for a moment. Follow me on this, because I know this seems depressing, and if you're early into this, you could be like, oh dear God, mighty blow, mighty blow. It's like, holy crap. Either you've already felt all this, or you're early on and maybe you've only hit a couple of these milestones I just mentioned, and you're thinking, oh my God, I have 3 more of these to go. So here's the thing, and I haven't discussed this in a long time, and I used to talk about how we have to re-baseline our lives. And it is super important that you do that. It was super important for me to do that. But it took me a couple of years to get to the point that I could actually accept that. Because the idea that my future, okay, I'll just be over dramatic, that my future was ruined, my retirement was ruined, my retirement savings was ruined, my ability to cover my medical event, I mean everything. It was like, oh my God. At one point they were taking 63% of my take-home pay, and then they upped it probably to 70 because there was when the ex found out about me dating, she freaked out, called child support services, and was like, he's a deadbeat dad. He didn't pay me once, and started a case. Just so you guys know, if you're dealing with a toxic, narcissistic, vindictive person, they will use everything in their power, to include the family court system and the child support system, to be their enforcement arm of terror. And anyways, short version of that is, if you, at least in the state of California, if you are in arrears, they can bump up another 25% of whatever you totally pay. So I won't use the numbers, but it was not an insignificant amount of money, and it was painful. My point is this. At the beginning part of this, I was incredibly irritated that the ex was still able to live off me. I thought initially that the family court system was going to add some justice into it, force her to get a job, force her to have to, get off the gravy train. And I was sadly mistaken on that. She proceeded to live off of me for another 7, 8 years. Now, at one point, she did go back to school to better herself. And that effectively, all it did was delay it, right? So she got more money from me. She got financial aid for school. And when she was finished, she was able to get basically a minimum wage job. I think my middle daughter got a job working at a grocery store that makes about what the ex makes. Anyways, my point is this. I was incredibly angry at this whole thing. I couldn't believe it. And it really got me caught in this like infinite do loop. Any of you programmers out there know that if you say do while true, print you're screwed in loop. Well, since it's an infinite do loop, and since it's an infinite positive true, there's no way for it to say a false to break out of it. It'll just keep running. That's when I talk about those infinite do loops you get caught in. And I was stuck in that for quite a while. I mean, I gotta admit, that was a few years, pretty bad years, where that just kept spinning out of control. Okay, so if you're living this, you might be thinking, okay, cool, Duane, so what happened? You took her back to court and you got the money reduced, and the system forced her to get a job, and you did something to get your justice, to get your justice. No, none of that happened. What did happen is I made my peace with it. I re-baselined my life. I stopped worrying about it and just said, okay, fine. This is a prison sentence, so to speak, that's been inflicted upon me. So I have to make the best of it. And the other part of it is I started thinking, I could sit here and remain angry and bitter and well, I guess vindictive isn't really the right word, because there wasn't really much I could do to be vindictive, for the rest of my life. I could stay in that mode, and 30 years from now, I could be, when I bump into you, at a coffee shop and we're talking, I could sit down and I could say, let me tell you a story about how my life got destroyed 30 years ago and everything got ruined and how great it was up until that point and everything was lost. And I've known people to do that, guys. I've known people who have got in that infinite do loop and never got out. And I think that is the saddest thing in the world. I mean, what we're going through, what you're going through is sad, but to be trapped there is worse. So what I had to do is I had to say, you know what? I can continue being angry, or I can find a way to live my life. I can find a way to find some happiness, some peace, some joy in my life. And that's what I started focusing on. I didn't start focusing on what I didn't have or what I had lost. I started focusing on what I did have. You know, I had a place to live. I had a roof over my shoulders. Yeah. You know, I had a vehicle that actually ran, even though it didn't get great gas mileage. You know, I had, you know, friends that cared about me, a handful of them that would keep in touch. Whatever it is, you have to find your peace. You have to find something that gives you joy. If it is sitting next to a little creek and just enjoying the sounds of nature, then the reality is that's something that somebody cannot take from you. Now, the hard part is at the beginning of it, it seems like everything that you like, they're able to take. I'll tell you another quick little story. I used to be really I am into photography and cameras and stuff like that. And as soon as the beginning part of the disclosures and everything happened, it came out that the ex was going hard after all my camera stuff. It's like, oh, he has camera stuff. It's worth a lot of money. I want my half. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And I said, well, what's the deal with this? He goes, well, depending on what happens, you may owe her half. I'm like, well, there's no money. Well, then you might have to sell it, or you might have to, you know, do whatever. Burn it in the garbage. And it bugged me so much that I just put everything up and I stopped using it. And the really weird part is when I first moved out and I was feeling good and I'm like, oh great, you know, now I can make my whole house into a studio, and I can start taking photographs again and do studio stuff and do portraits and do all this stuff I've been dreaming about doing. And I got caught up in this loop to where I was like, oh my God, if she takes it from me, I'm gonna be so angry. Am I gonna be able to get over it? And I just put everything in a bag and put it away and put it into the, you know, sell for attorney pile. Again, you can be looking at this or listening to me and say, holy crap, man, this is devastating. How am I ever going to get out of this? How am I going to ever get my life back? It's your perspective change that really makes the difference. It's not the ex coming back to you and saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've been so selfish. You know, everything I thought I was entitled to is just wrong. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to tell their dying breath, think that everything, well, they're going to their dying breath, more than likely what's going to happen, and let me know in the comments below if you agree with this statement, they are going to feel that they got gypped and they didn't get everything they were supposed to get. They're going to think, you know, even if they were getting 63% of your pay, they're going to think, well, that's not enough. I should be getting 80%. You know, he's lying about money. He's lying about this or whatever. In their mind, they're going to justify it. So on that, as a little bonus tip, focus on what's right for you. When you're making decisions, don't look to say, okay, well, if I do this, it's going to make the ex angry. Now, keep in mind, don't go buy a new car and do Brody's in their driveway or something like that. I mean, you don't want to like rub it in. But at the same time, if you're sitting there thinking, hey, I want to do option A, and it would really make me happy, but I think it might really make the ex mad, so I'll do option B. Here's the reality. They're going to be mad no matter what, so do whatever is right for you. It took me a while to figure that one out. Not as long as the other stuff, I'll tell you. Actually, I figured that one out a little faster because what I realized is every time I felt that way, every time I was like, oh no, I shouldn't do that. I should, you know, this will make the ex mad. I should do something different. I swear to God, without even knowing it, she would take her finger and go, boop, right in my eye. I'd be like, oh, Oh, I'll be like, F her. I'm going to do it anyways. That's how I ended up renting the house I did. When I rented the house I got, that I'm still in, by the way, I was worried about it. I was like, oh man, this is a nice place. She's going to be super mad. Maybe I shouldn't do this because I don't want to tick her off. Well, no matter what I did, it was going to tick her off. Unless I was living in a shoebox, you know, underneath a bridge, and I don't even know if then she would have been happy. Here's the reality. You got to focus on rebuilding your life. You got to focus on rebaselining it, saying, okay, if you were up here, you've been knocked down a few pegs, that's okay. You know, stabilize yourself and start rebuilding. Here's the thing. If you can do that, if you can get a handle on your emotional state quickly on that, it took me a while, I didn't do great on that. What ends up happening is you will get out of this mess faster. For instance, had I stopped trying to prove to the ex that my life was great and she wasn't causing me any pain, I would have been able to dig myself out of debt faster, pay everything off faster, and get to the point that where I am now, at year 8 or 9, I would have been at like a year 5. This is a long-term thing. This is, you know, when people say it's a marathon, not a sprint, they are absolutely right. What you have to do to win on these things, and win is such a weird word, what you have to do to get your life back on these, let's say it that way, is hunker down and focus on the long game. Focus on the long game. Focus on 5 to 10 years out. You do that, things will turn around. And then what you'll notice is as you progress on, your ex is going to have less and less control over your emotional state. It's going to take a while because the finance thing is a major trigger for probably 90% of everybody, because there's always something, right? It's always something. And I'll get into that in a minute. But that's really the key. That's really how you start to take your life back. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying you just let the ex mow you over and agree to everything. You got to fight the fights when they're important. I often talk about battles and wars. You got to be very selective on the battles you fight so that you don't lose the war. You have to keep that in mind. Sometimes I just need to say that because sometimes people think, oh, you just let them get away with everything. No, you fight whatever you can fight, and then when you start losing, you have to back off, because if you don't, you will drive yourself into the ground and you will lose the war. Okay, so the other thing I just want to mention, especially on finances, because oftentimes we have agreements or orders that basically say, you know, this is the money, you know, this is how much you're going to pay, and oh, by the way, this is how much each party pays for different events or different expenses. To be perfectly honest, if you guys can, I would be very cautious of that. Obviously, medical needs to be in there. You would probably be better served, like for extracurricular activities, to say, you know, as agreed upon or whatever, and not have a number in there, because if you do, then oftentimes what happens is little Cindy needs ballet lessons and piano lessons and vocal lessons, you know, from the highest rated people, and you know, you're already getting peeled monetarily, and now you're having to come up with another, you know, $800 a month or whatever to cover these other extracurriculars that you're not anticipating. So make sure when you agree to stuff, you understand what it is. I can go into more detail on that if you guys are interested. I don't think I've talked about that in a while. But let me just, the key thing to remember on this is that you do get your life back. Things do get better. Your perspective changes. I tell you what, you'll be amazed at how little you can live on, because when I started my divorce, I was like, holy crap, you know, there's no money. How is this going to work? And the next thing I know, I'm paying for 2 households effectively. I mean, I'm paying enough. I mean, I paid enough money for the ex not to work, and to pay her car payment and pay her interest, our insurance and food and utilities and everything, and mine for 7, 8 years. And I didn't think that was sustainable. And what come to find out, it's like, wow, it actually was. You adjust your lifestyle, you flip things around. It's a bitter pill to swallow. I will tell you that. That is. When you go from, whatever your lifestyle was before, maybe before you could do pizza night once a week. And now you can do pizza night once a month or pizza night once every 2 months, because it's just, you don't have the money for it. And the rest of it is macaroni and cheese and hamburger. And I'll tell you, guys, on the flip side of that, I could not believe the kids would tell me the gourmet meals that they were having over at Mommy's, and I'm like, how in the hell is she paying for that? Another little bonus tip, look up black hole thinking. If I can remember, I'll put a link to it in the description down below or up in the cards. That is a critical part of this, because thinking about what your ex is doing and what they're getting away with, or what they're able to do compared to what you're not able to do, or compared to what you are able to do, will drive you crazy. Don't do it. Black hole thinking is a methodology to where you don't you treat your ex like she's in the void, that she's in a black hole. I say she only because I'm using my experience. I'll say they. And the reality is, you have to focus on what you're doing. And you can't think about, oh my God, the ex won the lottery and, has $1 million a month, and I have $700 a month to pay rent and food and utilities and, whatever. You just have to say, okay, this is my life. This is what I can do, and focus on, when you have your kids, just building relationships with them. What you guys will realize is that you could do stupid stuff like play tic-tac-toe with them, play card games with them, play board games. If you can't do that, what I used to do in the beginning stages of it, even when I didn't have any furniture, we play hide and seek in the house. Just be creative and don't compare it to what you used to have or what the ex has. One little anecdote I'll just throw out there. I remember one point, I can't remember what the conversation was, but my son was like having some issues, and he was like calm at my house compared to Mommy's house, and it was like, it was weird because he was like, well, there's nothing to do over there, and it's stressful, and it's calm and over here, and we have stuff going on. And I'm like, I have nothing. What do you mean? I have no TV, I have no internet. I had internet, but I didn't have Netflix, I didn't have anything. And time with your kids and just showing them genuine love, even if they're poking you in the eye, really does trump a lot of this crap that your ex is putting you through. And the sooner you can realize that and adapt, the better off you will be. And on that, this video is running way long. I hope you guys don't mind that. Would definitely like to know what you think about this topic in the comments below, or maybe what stage of this you're in, or how it's affected you. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell notification. If you want to know whenever I do certain things, some people missed my last live thing I did. There's a link to sign up for an SMS notification, which is a text notification. You can sign up for that. You just text DSD Live to the number that's listed, and it'll add you onto that to where I can just directly send you a text whenever I do a live stream or I have something special going on, like a premiere. If you like what's going on and you want to support the channel, become a channel member. That even every little bit helps keep the lights on. And on that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to enjoy some more of this nature and explore, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.